Tonight we begin with a video that immigration attorneys had studied, civil rights activists had shared, and federal agents had dreaded. A confrontation that unfolded not over hours, not over days, but in 47 seconds. 47 seconds that changed one man's life. 47 seconds that went viral across every platform. 47 seconds that proved what lawyers have been saying for years. What this man did that morning crossed no lines. He broke no laws. He made no threats. He simply spoke 3 words. And when those 3 words left his mouth, ICE agents did not argue. They did not force entry. They did not make an arrest. They left. They responded with silence, frustration, and retreat. And tonight, we're going to show you exactly what happened, why it worked, and how you can protect yourself the exact same way. For months now, there had been whispers, not from official government channels, not from mainstream media, just whispers, that ICE was preparing something unprecedented. ICE has been aggressive, yes, but they have been strategic in their aggression. Their operations have followed a certain pattern, a rhythm, almost a predictability. But what set off alarm bells in immigrant communities this year was that the pattern changed. Immigration attorneys who monitor enforcement actions know the indicators. The increased presence in residential neighborhoods, the early morning raids, the unmarked vehicles parked outside apartment complexes, the sudden silence before a major sweep, all of that intensified. And whenever ICE goes quiet in one area, it means something is about to get loud in another. Communities were scared, families were terrified, parents stopped sending children to school, workers stopped showing up to jobs. But one man in Texas decided he would not live in fear. He decided he would know his rights. And that decision, captured on his doorbell camera, would change the national conversation about what ICE can and cannot do. Early Tuesday morning, security cameras detected what neighbors described as unusual activity, including 2 SUVs with government plates that had not been seen in this neighborhood in over 3 years. These are the kinds of vehicles that ICE only deploys when they are signaling something very specific: a targeted arrest, a neighborhood sweep, or an intimidation campaign. Residents didn't know which category this fell into, or whether it fell into all 3 at once. But what they did know was that ICE was changing tactics. And when federal agents shift strategy without explanation, even by a small degree, communities pay attention. At 6:47 a.m., 3 agents approached the front door of a modest single-family home. They knocked firmly. They announced themselves. They demanded the door be opened. Inside, a man, we'll call him Miguel, was already awake. He had prepared for this moment. Not with weapons, not with escape plans, but with knowledge. He grabbed his phone. He started recording. He approached the door but did not open it. And then he said the 3 words that would be viewed over 40 million times in the next 72 hours. The response from Miguel was not confrontational. It was not aggressive. It was not disrespectful. It was constitutional. Through the closed door, in a calm and steady voice, he said, "I don't consent." 3 words. That's all. The agents paused. Immigration lawyers watching the footage later described the agent's reaction as surprised, frustrated, and perhaps most importantly, legally powerless. You see, intimidation only works if the target doesn't know their rights. Miguel did. In fact, his response that morning was among the most textbook perfect exercises of constitutional rights we've seen in years. Here's what we know. Within seconds of saying those 3 words, the lead agent asked again. Miguel repeated, "I don't consent. Do you have a warrant signed by a judge?" These weren't random questions. These were the exact phrases immigration attorneys have been teaching for decades. Phrases that ICE agents cannot legally bypass without a judicial warrant. And they didn't have one. Tonight, legal experts confirm that Miguel exercised rights guaranteed under the 4th Amendment, protections against unreasonable searches and seizures, including the right to refuse entry that federal agents cannot override without judicial authorization. Miguel asked for proof before ICE could proceed. He asked for a warrant. He asked for documentation. He asked for the one thing they didn't have: a judge's signature. In other words, Miguel targeted the weakest point in their operation: the legal foundation that would have made their entry lawful. This is what made his response so powerful. ICE's presence wasn't just intimidating. It was calculated. It represented the kind of pressure that could destroy families if met with panic. And Miguel, understanding that fully, responded with calm. Not recklessly, not emotionally, but constitutionally. He didn't open the door. He didn't step outside. He didn't answer questions about his status. He didn't provide identification. He stated his rights. He requested documentation. And he recorded everything. And here's where the story becomes even more significant. Legal analysts now believe that ICE's latest tactics were designed to test the awareness of immigrant communities after years of misinformation. ICE wanted to see whether families would panic. ICE wanted to see whether people would open doors out of fear. ICE wanted to see whether communities had forgotten their constitutional protections. But instead, the opposite happened. Miguel didn't panic. He responded with preparation that was so calm, so informed, that even the agents noticed. You don't get federal agents to leave your doorstep easily. But that morning, Miguel did. Constitutional attorneys speaking with media under anonymity described ICE's approach as pressure testing, a way to identify easy targets and exploit fear. But Miguel proved that morning that he was both informed and unshakable. His words were not only legally accurate, they were delivered so precisely that agents had no legal pathway to proceed. That precision matters because it shows something critical. It shows that Miguel was not a passive victim. He was an active defender of his own constitutional rights. And that made all the difference. As the video continued spreading throughout the week, we learned more about the scale of community response. Immigration attorneys reported a 400% increase in calls asking about rights. Community organizations held emergency Know Your Rights workshops in 12 states. Social media accounts dedicated to immigrant rights gained hundreds of thousands of followers in days. This wasn't just one viral video. This wasn't just one lucky outcome. This was a movement. This was a turning point. And turning points are the one thing ICE has struggled to control since communities started getting organized. For every aggressive tactic they have deployed, informed communities have countered with something that neutralizes their power. Knowledge. Knowledge of the law. Knowledge of the Constitution. Knowledge of 3 simple words. Remember, ICE thought fear would be enough. They thought communities would remain silent. They thought constitutional education would never spread widely. They thought wrong. But this week, the exact opposite is happening. Videos are going viral. Workshops are filling up. Families are preparing. And federal agents are being recorded, legally, by the very people they're trying to intimidate. The dynamic has shifted, and it shifted because one man knew 3 words. What makes this moment so critical and so revealing is that ICE's latest tactics happened at a time when the agency is under extraordinary political pressure. Hardliners want more aggressive enforcement. Courts want constitutional compliance. Advocacy groups want accountability. Communities want protection. ICE leadership is balancing these demands while facing unprecedented public scrutiny. And when agencies in that position make sudden moves, they're not doing it from strength. They're doing it from pressure. They're doing it from political calculation. They're doing it from desperation to show results. Any results, even if those results violate constitutional boundaries. The ACLU's statement, now shared across every major platform, was designed to signal that constitutional rights are not negotiable. Civil liberties attorneys said plainly that ICE's tactics were inconsistent with Fourth Amendment protections. That is legal language for, they're trying to scare you into giving up rights you absolutely have. You don't usually hear that level of urgency from legal organizations unless something serious is at stake. And right now, the stakes couldn't be higher. Meanwhile, immigration advocates addressed communities in urgent, direct statements this week. They said, you have the right to remain silent. They said, you have the right to refuse entry without a judicial warrant. And they said, you have the right to record everything, and you should. These are not rhetorical suggestions. These are constitutional protections from advocates who understand just how high the stakes have become. Here's what makes the situation even more concerning. ICE's doorstep tactics weren't isolated. Along with residential visits, Workplace audits have increased dramatically, courthouse arrests have resumed in multiple states, social media monitoring has expanded, targeting online activity. All of this happened within the same quarter. When ICE moves multiple strategies at once, it means something larger is underway. A coordinated pressure campaign, an attempt to overwhelm communities before they can organize, a test to see who knows their rights and who doesn't. Legal analysts are now considering several possibilities. One is that ICE is preparing for expanded operations in sanctuary cities. Another is that ICE is attempting to create fear before legal challenges can be mounted. A third possibility, the one worrying advocates the most, is that ICE is attempting to establish new norms where constitutional boundaries are routinely ignored. But this week, Miguel took that possibility off the table. He didn't panic. He didn't comply out of fear. He didn't abandon his rights. He exercised them perfectly. What we're watching now is a test of constitutional literacy. ICE wants to see who will fold under pressure. Communities want to show they will not be intimidated. Courts want to prevent constitutional violations. And advocates want to prevent families from being destroyed by fear. This is the test. And this week, one man passed it. Tonight, we've heard from immigration attorneys who are now monitoring the aftermath of Miguel's video. They say similar tactics are being reported in multiple states. They say doorbell cameras are becoming essential documentation tools. And they say ICE's decision to retreat was likely part of standard protocol when legal resistance is encountered. But that doesn't mean they won't return. But Miguel is not backing down. In fact, Miguel is speaking up. His response that morning, calm, informed, and constitutionally precise, sent a message to ICE that fear alone will no longer work. And it sent a message to millions watching that 3 words can change everything. As the week goes on, we expect more details to emerge about exactly what ICE hoped to achieve. But what we do know is that Miguel's preparation was critical. It protected his family, it demonstrated constitutional rights in action, and it inspired millions to learn those same 3 words. What happens next will depend on what ICE does in the coming months. If they respect constitutional boundaries, this moment will be remembered as a turning point. If they continue aggressive tactics, communities have already shown they are ready. They have shown they are prepared. They have shown they know their rights. And tonight, for the first time in years, something has changed. ICE is watching. Communities are learning. And when communities learn their rights, enforcement changes. It means agents are reconsidering their approach. It means tactics are being adjusted. Because this week, ICE learned something they should have known all along. The Constitution protects everyone. 3 words can stop an unlawful entry, and cameras are always watching. This story is far from over. But tonight, one thing is clear. Miguel knew his rights. He exercised them perfectly, and that made all the difference. And we will be here, covering every development as this story continues to unfold.